Hey YouTube, welcome back to Tinker with Tools. Tonight we're going to be talking about the brand new Milwaukee Track Saw. We'll get into it, tell you what I think about it, go over some of the things I've used it for so far, and how I see it working out for me in the future. So let's go over that here on Tinker with Tools. Now, track saws are not new by any means. They have been around for quite some time, and most of the major tool companies already out there have had one for a few years now. Makita, Bosch, DeWalt all have track saws, and then you have some of the more premium players like Festool and Mafell that also have these track saws already. They come in both corded and cordless versions, and Milwaukee is by no means new to the game. So being this late of an entry in the track saw market, what have they done right, and how do I think this saw is going to work out for you? Well, let's go ahead and cover some of the features that it has. We'll go through them in depth and talk about the different things you can do with the saw. We'll show you some of the cuts that I've made, and then we'll go over some of the pros and cons of this saw in particular. Now, to give some backstory, I've actually had a track saw, this being the Craig model, for roughly 2 years now. Before that, I looked at them constantly, deciding whether or not I should buy one. Now, with a track saw, you can obviously do everything that you can do with your other saws. My opinion is track saws just make it easier, they have better dust collection, and they give you some really nice precise cuts. But this saw has worked well for me. I will admit I was a little disappointed with some of the power early on, especially cutting through 2x material. It just didn't seem to want to do it. I would have the saw stall and cut out. And so ultimately, although I was happy with it for cutting down sheet goods and breaking down things, it did leave me wanting more. I definitely decided after using that one that I wanted a more premium track saw. And then last year, Milwaukee announced that they finally had the track saw coming out. As soon as I saw that, I knew that I was going to be ordering the Milwaukee, and I actually pre-ordered the saw in November and finally got it about a week ago. And I have to tell you, my initial first impressions of the saw are that this is an incredibly nice saw. Now, truth be told, I don't have experience with the Makita XGT or even the Makita LXT, so I don't have tons of experience with some of the other premium saws out there. But I can tell you, coming from that Craig and having looked at other entry-level track saws, this is in a different level and it is a more premium saw. And so far, the power level that it delivers has been nothing short of impressive. You can do 2 1/4 inches at 90 degrees, and then it'll do 1 5/8 inch at 45 degrees. So even on a 45-degree cut, you are able to get through 2x material. The depth adjustment lever is nice. It does allow you to do nice, precise depth adjustments, and it does have 2 different sides. One that is going to be for when you are using it on the track, and one when it's going to be used off the track. It adjusts very easily, and it is definitely nicer than what I have been using on that Craig saw. It is a higher end saw that I have enjoyed so far. This saw also has a switch to do a score cut. When you activate that, you will actually be able to just kind of go through the top layer of whatever you're cutting through, giving you a nice clean cut, and then when you do the full cut, you won't have all the tear out that you might have otherwise with that. You then up here have the bevel gauge, which you can go from -1 all the way up to 48 degrees. You do have detents at 22.5, 45, and then obviously at 48 as well. So to be able to adjust that, you just undo both of the knobs, one at the front, one at the back, loosen it up, and then you can go ahead and adjust 0 to 45. If you want to be able to do the 22.5, you can actually pull it out on this and twist it around, and now the saw will stop at 22.5 automatically. And then once you have it going on all the way up to 45, there's a little switch right here that will get you a close-up of that allows you to override that and go up to 48, or when you're down at 0, go back to -1. The depth of cut is nice, and so far with the included blade, which is a 40-tooth finish blade, I have seen some just incredible cut quality. We'll try and give you some close-ups of the different cuts that we've done. Overall, it is very nice, the quality of cuts that I'm getting so far. All right, so as I mentioned, this takes a 6.5-inch blade. Milwaukee has come out with a whole line of blades that are specifically made for this track saw, different fine finishes, ripping and general purpose blades. They have blades dedicated to laminate products, so you can do a lot of different things with this saw, and they do have a whole host of blades for them. Just make sure that you're getting a blade that's built for the purpose you're using it for, so you can get the best results possible. Now, the blade viewing window here comes installed by default, but then you also do have a splinter guard attachment that this can pop off, and you can install this And then when you have that in there, you can lower it down to be in contact with the piece so that you do get a nice splinter-free cut. Back on the back, you do have the dust port, which is adjustable in which direction it is going to spray. They do include a small cloth bag that does allow the dust to go into there. My experience is that this does a decent job at collecting dust, especially when you're comparing it to a traditional circular saw. Within the first day or so of using it, I did manage to fill this up by itself. And so that is something that was impressive, is just how much dust it does direct into there. I don't know that this is ever going to be the best option on the market for dust collection. Milwaukee does claim 90% dust collection. And so far, I have to say I'm impressed with what it can do. It is much cleaner than the circular saws I've used in the past, or even the Craig, which I have been using for the last 2 years. Around back, you do have the dial that allows you to go ahead and adjust the speed. It goes from 1 up to 6. It will adjust from 2,500 RPMs all the way up to 5,600. Now, kind of around on the back side of the saw, you do have the knobs here that allow you to adjust this or mate it with any track that you choose. And then last but not least, right here, they do have a knob that is the anti-tip feature. When you engage this on the track, especially if you're doing a bevel cut, it will allow the saw to be held in place and to not tip over. Last thing that I forgot to mention when we were over here, this saw does have a riving knife that comes down and helps keep the wood from closing up on the back of the blade, creating kickback. So that is a nice safety feature to see. So now, track compatibility. The nice thing that Milwaukee did is they actually chose to be compatible with the Makita and the Festool track system, which does allow you to have existing tracks that you can go ahead and choose this on. Now, not every one of those tracks is going to have full features. On this track, the PowerTech one, it rides just fine. I haven't noticed any problem with the cut quality, but overall, I can't really use the anti-tip feature with this saw because it doesn't appear to really sit down in well enough. Hopefully, when the Milwaukee track comes, I'll have a better feel for how it is on the Milwaukee tracks. I have seen people using it on both Festool and Makita tracks. One of the really great things that I think when they chose to go with that system is you now have an entire system of accessories to expand the functionality of those tracks. For example, you can buy different attachments that allow you to make sure that you're setting up your track square to your workpiece. And I really think that going with an existing track ecosystem allows this saw to really hit the ground running versus having to wait for people to get the tracks in hand and then adapt to it. Having different options allows you to pick the one that you feel is right for you. Just know that you're not going to be getting necessarily full functionality with each one of them, so just keep that in mind. If all you're doing is 90-degree vertical cuts, I have had no problem with this PowerTech track, and it is obviously a lot cheaper than the more premium tracks. Overall, as I mentioned, the build quality on the saw is exceptional. It comes in just over 9 pounds for the saw without the battery. Obviously, when they ship it with a 6 amp hour high output, but it will run with any of M18's batteries. I would probably recommend staying with a 5 or higher, but if you had to use a smaller battery in a pinch, I'm sure the saw would accept it and run. It just might not have its maximum performance. All right, so now let's talk about what I've used the saw for and how it's performed while doing that. Well, initially, when I first got it, we did just some simple test cuts. I went through some 1/2-inch plywood, obviously had no trouble with that, but it did produce a very clean cut. And then I did cut through some hickory, which we'll go ahead and show you that. The hickory, it obviously is a harder wood, but I was actually really impressed with how little the saw bogged down in 3/4 inch material and just went right through it, producing a super clean cut, and it just worked really well. I've then broken down some sheets of OSB with this, and I have to tell you, breaking down OSB, obviously not real taxing on a saw, especially at a 3/4 inch thickness, But even when I doubled it up to 1.5 inches, you did hear a change in the motor speed, but at no point did I feel like it was ever even close to cutting out. Went right through it, and you barely even felt resistance as you were moving through it. So far, the power of it has been very good. And then tonight, we did some cuts in a 2x12, doing both some cross cuts and then some length cuts. We even did a 45-degree bevel to test that out. All right, so now let's talk about pricing and how it compares to some of its competition. All right, so what I purchased is actually the bare tool. I got the bare tool, the blade that comes with it, the dust bag, and the splinter guard. That's all that came with it. It was $399. Now, when I'm comparing to the competition from the other major tool brands, Makita's 40-volt XGT saw runs $429 bare tool. The LXT version right now is going for $389. Now, when it comes to the kit form, you can go ahead and pick up this kit for $639. The kit that it's going to come with is going to come with the Packout XL case that is going to have in it the saw, a 6 amp hour high output battery, a rapid charger, and space to store all the other accessories that come with the tool only. Now, if you go to a site like Ohio Power Tool, which is where I bought the bare tool, you can also then purchase a bundle. They have a bundle that is the tool only with a guide rail and a storage bag for the guide rail. That comes in at $587. That's the 55-inch kit. And then they also have kind of the more all-in bundle, which is going to include the kit plus the guide rail plus the storage bag for it, and that's going to run you $827. So as you can see, just buying the tool alone with a track saw is not your all-in price. All right, now let's go ahead and talk Milwaukee Tracks. The track I have on order is the 55-inch. The 55-inch track will cost you $129. As I mentioned, that is more expensive than Makita. It is less money than what you're going to be paying with Festool. It is purpose-made for this saw, and so things like the anti-tip are going to work with it. Now, the other tracks, they do have a 31-inch track, so if all you're doing is cross-cutting smaller panels or materials, a 31-inch track could be nice for that. The 31-inch comes in at $79. They also have a 106-inch track at $249. The nice thing is you can go ahead and get two 55-inch tracks, and they do offer connectors. Now, having those connectors is going to make the track long enough. It may not ever be quite as nice as having a single piece of aluminum that is going to give you nice rigidity there. So just keep that in mind. And then obviously they do have different accessories for it. As I mentioned, I've ordered some clamps to be able to clamp the track down, so there's no chance it moves around when it's on your material. Not absolutely necessary. I've been using the track without clamps so far, and I have seen good results with the track staying in place, so it is pretty nice there. As I mentioned, I still haven't tried the Milwaukee track. I've been using this PowerTech option. It was significantly cheaper, and there are sales that offer on it. So if you want the saw but aren't necessarily dead set on having the Milwaukee track, I think this is a decent option. All right, so now having used the saw for a little over a week now, using it in a variety of different things, I am 100% happy with my purchase. This saw is everything that I hoped it would be and some more. The amount of power that it has to be able to do the cuts with ease and little to no effort has been very impressive. And the quality of cut that I'm getting, I have just been really impressed. As I said, I've been running this both with the Packout vac and then this little dust bag, and the dust collection has been nice. Yes, there still is dust. There almost always is going to be. But the amount of cleanup that I have to do, especially in this tiny shop, has actually been a lot nicer. So that's less dust that I'm going to be breathing in and less dust that I have to clean up on all these different surfaces. So this is a premium product. I get that it's not for everyone. I get that some of you are going to go out and buy a different track saw, but if you're on the Milwaukee platform, I know we've been frustrated waiting for the saw to come out, but it's here and it works really well, and I think that if you give it a chance, you will like it as well. So there you have it. This is the Milwaukee plunge saw. I love it. I think you'll love it too. If you have any questions, go ahead and leave them down in the comments below. I'd love to try and get them answered for you. Once again, obviously I'm not going to have experience with every track saw out there, nor do I really have the budget to go out and do a vast comparison between track saws, but I can tell you I've been pleased here. If you like the video, go ahead and smash that like button. And if you haven't already, please consider subscribing and even sharing the channel if you feel so inclined, as that does help promote the channel, which is obviously going to help us get more tool-related content for you in the future. Thank you for your support. I really appreciate it. Until next time, I'll catch you on Tinker with Tools.